Hey everybody, it's your hospitality friend Glenn here, live on the show floor at AAHOA 25. I want to thank our friends over at Red Roof for sponsoring this. I got Bhavin Patel over here with Spark GHC, and you guys are doing some really cool stuff out there. Now, you're up to some mysterious stuff, something called Project Scarlet, and does this involve Scarlett Johansson?
It does not involve her. All right, so let's talk about it anyway. So Project Scarlet is 123 boutique hotel keys and 154 branded residences.
This is interesting.
Tribute. Tenants will get Bonvoy points for living inside of the apartment building.
Is this the first time?
First time in the world.
That is pretty cool. How awesome would that be to be living in an apartment and get those loyalty points? That's pretty freaking awesome. So how does all that work?
Yeah, no, we're kind of learning as you know, we put this project together, but it's going to be an incredible experience for the people that live in the apartment building. If you think about, you know, there will be a wonderful restaurant on the ground floor. Tenants will be able to order food from the restaurant or have it delivered to their unit. Housekeeping services can be provided from the hotel side. Concierge services can be provided. So it's an elevated experience to live in an apartment building with all of the benefits of hospitality.
And the funny thing is we're treating this like this is new. But that's what people did 100 years ago.
Correct.
Which is so funny. And now we're all acting like it's a big deal. But it is a big deal because it's a real seminal shift to how people are living and experiencing our great country, right?
Absolutely. And I think, you know, that's a great parallel. I think labor costs were a lot different 100 years ago than they are today. So therefore, you know, trying to bring a product to market that is still within, you know, an acceptable range of what people want to pay. Apartment building just cannot have the staffing that a hotel can. Blending the two from an operational standpoint, having a food and beverage-led experience for the tenant and the hotel guests, I think is going to be a phenomenal concept.
All right, and I am 100% behind food and beverage leading the way, because that's really where you're going to be able to make your money above and beyond and really get more dollars per person, even in a time where consumers, I think, are starting to feel a little resistant to overnight pricing, and those ADRs might have a little trouble. But even with that headwind, you are still having great opportunities developing a lot of select service hotels in the Midwest.
Yeah, so right now we're still in acquisition mode. We have 4 in the pipeline right now that we're under contract or PSA negotiations on. And then we are looking to do 1 to 2 full service assets this year. We've been very fortunate. We have a group of investors that trust us and have followed us on our journey for over 7 years now. So
how are you going to be negotiating all of these changes that seem to be coming in, especially when there's a lack of consistency with the rules of the game that you will need to be successful in 2025 and beyond?
Yeah, I think, you know, for us, we really started buying hospitality assets at scale in 2022. And I think those were uncharted waters for a lot of us post-COVID. We feel a similar mindset today. I think there's opportunity and you have to figure it out. But at the same time, I think you have to quickly adjust and adapt to market conditions. And we look at it, you know, we have our stand-up calls every morning. We discuss macroeconomics, microeconomics, and then we, just like everybody else, put our best foot forward.
Yeah.
That's all you can do.
Right. And then be adaptable and change as things go. Everyone says select service hotels. I like the expression focus service hotels, right? So you guys are really, you know, putting your attention towards those, but how do you continue to raise profitability when you're limited with the amount of areas that you could charge customers?
Absolutely.
Everyone has this problem, and I'm just starting to think about how this is going to be a challenge maybe going forward.
Yeah, so, you know, for us, we're trying to understand how IoT devices will help us build a better operation when we do the PIPs. We can kind of start focusing on things that matter to the guests more and automate, you know, the check-in process, the laborious side of things that, again, is not a focus. Also, amenitizing certain things like parking. I think a lot of companies have started to look at that as a revenue source for the hotel. And then we're looking at the F&B side again. You know, it's like, hey, a cup of coffee in the morning or bringing in a local vendor who has a small shop in the marketplace that could kind of add value. But
well, it would add value to me as much as I like the complimentary coffee, and no smack against anybody. Sometimes it's not the coffee that I particularly like, and I said that so New York coffee over there. It's not necessarily, but also you got these teeny tiny little cups. Honestly, I would pay more just to have a cup of coffee that I love that's of the right size. So you're right on. You can monetize it, and with technology, and this is what we've been preaching on no vacancy, utilizing technology to remove labor where it doesn't affect guest experience in order to be more profitable, or at least have less constraints when it comes to rising prices on goods and services.
Absolutely. I think the first interaction with the guest is super important. You know, how they feel when they leave a hotel room is super important. That feedback loop of following up with them once they check out. And
Right.
these are all things that the industry is working on. And I think, look, at the same time as, there's a lot of uncertainty in the world.
Yeah.
This industry has been through a lot, and I think we're going to be just fine.
I think we're going to be just fine too. That's a really great place to leave this at, because the one thing that we know is that people want to travel. Going out and having experience is and always will be more important than having stuff, right?
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much for watching. Bhavin Patel over here. I'm Glenn Houseman. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with everybody. I want to thank Red Roof. And here's to AAHOA 2025.
Thank you.